Hello there, kia ora. The Select Committee is now taking submissions on the ACT Party wants to control everything the government ever does forever bill, also known as the Regulatory Standards Bill. This piece of legislation would hand unprecedented power to the Minister of Regulation, who is, this guy, David Seymour. Shocker. And every new act and most of the old acts they want to review would then be put through the grinder to see if it fits the definition of good lawmaking, based on David Seymour's principles, like the ones he wanted to define the treaty with. But this act has no mention of the treaty, our founding document and cornerstone to our entire legal framework. The Waitangi Tribunal called for it to be scrapped, citing that there was no consultation with Māori, that it seeks to rewrite the constitutional arrangements of the country by changing the process in which laws are made, which therefore impacts Māori, so they should have been consulted. Not doing so actually violated the Crown's obligation to consult with Māori in good faith. Labour's Duncan Webb has pointed out that this bill favours corporate interests over environmental protections, communities and the treaty. The Greens have said that the bill itself proceeding shows that Christopher Luxon is failing to show up to support the treaty, while even Winston Peters has doubts about it, but he's allowed it to go through to the Select Committee stage. Experts online like Professor Jane Kelsey have called it a constitutional straitjacket and dangerous by infusing our laws with the far-right faux libertarian ideology of the ACT Party. Dr. Carwyn Jones has called it the Anti-Treaty Principles Bill designed to be constitutionally superior to the treaty and allowing government to bypass the document, and has even been likened to a fascist framework because it removes the ability for public servants, professionals and local authorities to apply case-by-case judgment in specific contexts when the need arises, so that they can ensure consistent regulation under the Act. The New Zealand Law Society has said that it lifts right from the US Constitution in parts which makes no sense in an Aotearoa New Zealand context, which is why they were left out of the Bill of Rights Act. It lacks definitions for key elements of the bill, like what does it mean by quality lawmaking and how do you set standards to be measured by. Lady Turete Moxon called it a law about the privileged wanting to maintain their hold on power and control and continue a system of domination, suppression, exploitation, and assimilation, also known as colonization. The fact of the matter is, this is a bad law written by a minor party with undue influence on the government for 8% of the vote. ACT have tried 3 times now to get this made law, and the only reason it's happening now is because Christopher Luxon is not only a weak leader, he's one who tends to turn a blind eye to any legislation that would have detrimental impacts on Māori or relate to constitutional arrangements of the country. And it seems much of the public can see this. In fact, the initial feedback on the bill, 22,800 submissions, only 76 or 0.33% supported it. But David admitted he hadn't read the feedback he didn't like because social media people were mean and said mean things about it. Well, now submissions are open and, true to form with this coalition, submission time has been cut with only 4 weeks to get a submission in instead of the usual 6. If you want to make a submission, I'll have a link in the description below to the parliamentary website directly so you can do that. And when it comes to submissions, there's 2 things to remember. The first is that the submission needs to be in your voice, using your words. Remember the Treaty Principles Bill and all the tears from grumpy racists who use forms from Hobson's Pledge or NZCPR or other places when they weren't counted because they were forms? Avoid that by using your own words, although, seeing who's on the Finance Committee that's looking over this, my submission will be omitting some of the choice words I really want to say to a couple of MPs in particular. The second thing to remember is you don't have to write a novel. You can just say, I don't support this bill. Maybe chuck in a reason or 2, but you don't have to. The important thing here is to have your voice heard, and it's not about who is the loudest or the most eloquent. It's about creating a chorus of voices who all stand for making sure the future of the country, its laws, the way it works, is not defined by a man who spent his time in Canada on Atlas Group-linked think tanks trying to downplay harms to Indigenous peoples who seemed fine with trying to ignite a civil war with his Treaty Principles Bill. Yeah, it is exhausting constantly trying to stop the steamroller that seems to be this government, but remember this sort of feeling in 18 months when the election rolls around. Until then, making sure your voice is part of the chorus is the best thing we can do to show we want a better future for Aotearoa together. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.